Welcome to another Coffee with Samso. Today we are in Adelaide at the Hotel Indigo here on Market Street, right next to the Adelaide Central Markets. We're talking to Pioneer Minerals Limited today. ASX code is PMM, and I will have the CEO, Michael Beven, here to talk to us about all exploration, tungsten, gold, antimony. It is a very strong candidate for a tungsten story. And as everyone who has been following us recently, I've been hot on the heels on tungsten stories. So let's hope that Michael brings that to the table. Michael is a exploration geologist. He has been working for Petroterm in South Australia, as well as Marmota and Core Exploration. Worked in Australia, Brazil, and Canada. So before we proceed, I will just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been following us. We're going close to the end of the year 2025. So a shout out to everyone who's been following and supporting us. Look, and those that haven't been following us, please do subscribe to us. Come onto our website and support us on our page in the means that we put up there in any ways that you see fit. It does help us to continue to create independent and organic content for the likes of everyone out there, investors and people who have general interest. So 2026 will be a year where we will push ahead and create even more content. So thank you for all the support for everyone else out there. And as usual, grab your favorite beverage and let's sit back and enjoy another Coffee with Samso. Thank you. Welcome back to Coffee with Samso. Today we've got Michael Beven here with us from Pioneer Minerals. ASX code is PMM. As we've said, it's a tungsten story. So, Michael, welcome to Coffee with Samso.
Thanks for having me, Noel. It's good to be here.
Yeah, look, I know you're a celebrity on YouTube yourself, and now you are in the grind of CEO of Pioneer Minerals.
Right.
So, just give us a background and how you got involved with Pioneer.
Right. So, as Noel introduced before, previously I've worked for some preeminent South Australian exploration companies, Petroterm, Marmota, and began in my very early days with Core. After that, I started the GeoInvest YouTube channel, where I went through and did independent geological reviews of companies' different projects. Looked at hundreds of different companies and projects across the world. And during that time as well, I was also consulting for about 7 different ASX listed companies on various different minerals globally, Brazil, Canada, Australia, just about everywhere you can think. Africa, we're going through and consulting for them a lot around, asset acquisition, reviewing projects for acquisition by companies and so forth. And that's how I got introduced to the group associated with Pioneer Minerals and behind them and multiple other different companies. And so Pioneer Minerals was previously Pioneer Lithium. The company floated only just over 2 years ago as a lithium explorer right at the end of the lithium boom. So fantastic lithium assets in Ontario, but of course they listed right at the end of the sort of boom. So Pioneer wanted to go through a reimagination and diversify its asset portfolio. And so once they started that process, they asked me to come on board to help manage that exploration and push that progress.
Okay. As I said, look, I'm a diamond tragic and a tungsten tragic.
Yeah.
But the tungsten space is, I believe, it's gone parabolic in terms of the pricing.
Yeah.
So can you share with us what you have as in Pioneer?
So our primary asset and our flagship project at the moment, especially when it comes to tungsten, I will just reiterate at the moment though that it's actually it's tungsten. That's where we've got the highest and the best grade so far. But it's really a tungsten, antimony and gold play. The area that we're in, those 3 commodities are indistinguishable from each other, which is excellent. So The main project that we have at the moment is the Northman Project, which is in Idaho, very close to the stibnite gold project that Perpetua Resources have. So the project comprises of 3 different prospective areas. These are all areas that I've gone out, researched, and then pegged myself. We didn't buy them or acquire them from anyone else. We went through, spent the time, looked at the geology, looked at the yellow pine mine particularly. So I might just go in and give you a bit of a regional context and I guess what the golden goose is in the area as well. So historically, the yellow pine mine is the largest tungsten and antimony producer in the history of the US. It's also now what's called the Stibnite Gold Project, which is held by Perpetua Resources, but it was never mined for gold, right? The prize back in the 50s was always going to be antimony and tungsten, with tungsten being the main focus there. So at the moment, it's no longer mined for tungsten. It's now an antimony and gold play. I think the current resource is estimated around about 6 million ounces with about a 4.5 million ounce reserve of gold. And most of the significant tungsten was mined out historically back in the day. But that model, that size deposit, to give you an idea, Perpetua Resources is a $2 billion company at the moment, right? So that is the template ore deposit that we're focused on finding and discovering. So we have 3 different prospective areas in North Pine, proximal to Perpetua Resources, and they do have different styles of mineralisation and geology. Each one has its own, I guess, merits which distinguish it, and it is a bit of a story of its own. But when I went through and I was looking at yellow pine, the mineralisation, how it formed, how it occurs, and how it was mined and explored as well, I really started to look around in the area around it to see, are there any analogues here? Are there any examples where we have the same geology? Or is there anything that looks like it could be similar but just hasn't been explored, right? And that led me firstly to what we call the Springfield Prospect. Now, Springfield is really quite exciting. It's really quite good, and that's the main tungsten story at the moment, because at Springfield there is an old historic tungsten mine that was mined by Bradley Mining Co., the same company that mined yellow pine back in the day. So it was discovered in 1945. It operated for a short time under a US tungsten mining subsidy, I should say. And the most astounding thing about it, so it's a tungsten skarn, right? It's known mineralisation, and the most exciting thing about it is that when you start digging through the exploration of the skarn in the system, there basically is none. The skarn was outcropping at surface. They mined mostly the talus material which had fallen off the skarn, and then there'd only been done 1,800 feet of drilling to define that small lens of tungsten mineralisation that was there. So, when you're an Australian and you look at this sort of stuff, like they weren't exploring this area. They were just mining and focused purely on what they could see was sticking out of the wall. So, as a geologist and an exploration geologist, firstly, 1,800 feet, 800, 900 meters worth of drilling is absolutely nothing. A lot of those holes seems to be horizontal as well, not vertical, right? So basically hasn't been tested for depth, for extension at all. Drilling outside of the skarn itself is pretty much non-existent from what we can find. And the way that the skarn occurs is, just to go straight into some geology, I hope you don't mind, but what you've got here is you've got sediments of what they call the Windermere supergroup, which are limestone, sandstones, sedimentary rock layers. And then the Idaho batholith, which is a granite, has intruded into it and subsumed a lot of the Windermere supergroup. Now, as we all know, the limestones with heavy and carbonaceous material, they make the chemical trap for a lot of different minerals, and that's how skarns are traditionally formed. Now, at yellow pine, this is where I go back to the analogies, right, and try to say, well, what we have here, can this be like this? The tungsten mineralisation at Yellow Pine is a host of different skarns, right? Stacked skarns and also spread laterally, which are all roof pendant. So they're bits of the limestone that did exist, and then the Idaho batholith has enveloped them and altered them into skarn. So you've got multiple skarn lenses throughout that area. So again too, when I look at Springfield, I say geologically, because limestone is deposited in large, broad sheets generally, right? And in an area where you already have a skarn sitting there, but no exploration around, the idea that there's just one small tiny pocket of limestone and nothing else just doesn't make sense to me at all geologically, right? Often, tungsten skarns are stacked at depth, or multiple different roof pendants where there's multiple different limestone skarn deposits there. So that was my thinking, is I look at Springfield and I say to myself, it hasn't been drilled, it hasn't had any geophysics done on it at all. There's absolutely no way that there's just this single small skarn sitting here. I expect there's got to be more there, and likely in roof pendants. That's the sort of model, or a stacked model. So for me, I just think this is a crazy opportunity to find a lot more tungsten, and it gets better as we go. So I might just jump straight into the actual tungsten that we have there. So it was historically mined that the grades that are reported are 0.3 and 0.4% tungsten. So good economic grades that we're looking for. Most, cut-off grades for a resource today would be, 0.1 to 0.3 would be used as the bottom cut-off, depending on what the style of the mineralisation is. So we know that we've got, basically by modern day standards, we've got economic grades of tungsten still sort of sitting there that was historically mined. And then on top of that as well, probably more exciting, is that the area, the deposit, it was just mined for tungsten and never explored for gold or anything else. Now at Yellow Pine, what we know is we've got a broad halo of gold mineralisation, 6 million ounces at 1.1 grams per tonne. And then sitting within that envelope of gold mineralisation, we have these multiple skarnoids that are tungsten bearing. And so maybe old timers is the wrong word because it was the 1950s, but traditionally when people have mined tungsten, they've just targeted the tungsten skarn, mined that out, and that's it. In fact, at Yellow Pine, the gold was never mined, right? It was just those tungsten skarns that were mined. So what we found now, it's still early days for us. We've just completed the first field program, first field sampling program, and completed the first magnetic survey. But what we found is that we've got the tungsten that's coming back in the rock chip samples is excellent grade. The highlights are sort of 0.4 up to even 2.98. These are rock chips though, often they're a bit higher, but when you look at the higher sort of rock chips, that very much, you can kind of track that back and then gives you confidence in those historic sort of mining grades that are there. So that's excellent. But we've also found evidence of some significant gold there as well. One sample came back at 7.75 grams per tonne, another one 1.5, quite a few at 0.2, 0.3 grams per tonne and so forth. And these are sitting sort of distal to the actual skarn itself. So this fits multiple different models. It fits the classic model of your tungsten skarn with, the gold halo, but it also is potentially indicative of that larger gold system with multiple skarn bodies within that we see at Yellow Pine, right? So Springfield is really quite exciting for that because, you end up with a tungsten play with significant gold credits and even potentially a significant gold play with significant tungsten credits, right? One way or the other. So the gold system, the broader skarn system has just never been explored. No drilling, no geophysical surveys or anything like that. So really, for me, really quite exciting. And I think, I am eagerly awaiting for our exploration to come. I think it's going to be quite exciting.
It's really interesting listening to you kind of describe that whole concept of what you guys are and the geology and then going down on what I call the local geology side of things. Because when we talk big picture stuff, a lot of times we think, even like when people talk about their porphyries and things like that, it's not actually just porphyries, it's the system that it creates, the mineral system, which is what you're trying to describe, that it's not just tungsten, it's not just gold. If you take the envelope of what it is, you got a facet of multiple system, a system that has multiple mineralization styles, which is exciting, because one of the things that I think people missed out on the whole, this may have missed out, I don't want to preempt that, but you pick the area, so you started, and the concept of you identifying the area is based, is because a lot of people think big tenements is good, but big tenements means you just put a blanket over something. But when you're based on where the mineralization styles would be, because in Australia everything's flat, everything's undercover mostly, right? I'll say mostly. But in the rest of the world, we have mountains. I'm looking at some of the photos that you've got there.
Yeah.
Mountains means it's outcropping, literally.
Yeah.
So, and access to it's very easy. You're not needing to go down 200 meters or etc. of cover. So, can you elaborate more? Like, I'm very interested in the fact that, because antimony to me is really very often associated with high-grade gold deposits.
Yes.
And as much as I love tungsten, but tungsten is also very associated with gold systems.
Yes.
How, because gold's hot as, even probably hotter than tungsten.
Yep, I agree.
Right?
Yep.
And it has an equilibrium of price and market. Everyone's on the same path, whereas tungsten's slightly.
Yeah.
What are the chances of you guys walking onto a potential gold discovery or gold deposit?
Really high, I think. I mean, I hate to be overly optimistic.
At least you're saying it and not me.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you touched on about how you acquire ground and in different jurisdictions. And, you know, in Australia and what you'd normally do is you actually often try and get as much ground as you can, right, in an area that's broadly prospective. And then you go through and you try to systematically narrow down within that really broad area, you know, what your sort of target spots are. The US, the staking process is a little bit different, and so instead of that sort of start big and work down, very much started from very targeted specific areas, which, you know, tick all of the different boxes that we'd want. So I mean, with GeoInvest, as a lot of people that know me from GeoInvest, I reviewed, I want to say every project under the sun, but not quite every project under the sun. But you know, I've looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different exploration plays, but also mines as well, and the geology there as well. And I was just extremely excited, so excited when I started looking at this area. I couldn't believe what was available. And just the structural controls, the geology, the historic mineralisation. Now, so the areas that we've got are very specific for mineralisation, but specific for tungsten, antimony, and gold, right? And I'll walk through them. So I've spoken a little bit about Springfield and how we have this traditional Skarn, tungsten Skarn, with a gold halo, which could be Skarn with gold halo, multiple stacked lenses with gold halo, or a larger gold system with multiple Skarns within it. But if we, and just to give you an idea of, well, so because often when we talk about antimony, the grades, you know, you often see people going, oh, grades of X amount of percent, like really quite high grades. Yellow pine has low grade antimony, right? We're talking like 0.06, 0.08, right? But because it's such a bulk scale. So we do see antimony at Springfield as well as pathfinders, but we have different mineralized systems here in the area. So when that's the Springfield Prospect. When we jump across to the Silver Cliffs Prospect, what we end up with is and the reason I peg Silver Cliffs is because the historical reports and the work that was done back in the 50s identified a silicious zone which was 350 meters wide by 1.5 kilometers long, with, I guess, veins of antimony in them, which reported grades of up to 4.5%, with stibnite-bearing boulders. So the boulders were reported to be 5 feet, sitting at the base of the cliffs, and that hosted as much as 1/4 stibnite, right? So you think, all right, that's great. But the inference is that the fault which this silicious zone strikes along runs across Johnson Creek and then up into the Copper King prospect, which is an old name for a prospect, which you can essentially call Golden Gate now, which Resolution Minerals are just drilling. You know, and they've got fantastic intercepts, 150 meters, 200 meters at sort of 1 gram per ton and 0.5 gram per ton, things like that. Really huge intercepts of relatively low grade, what would historically be considered low grade. But now, obviously, you know, with the price of gold, it absolutely cuts the mustard. So this is one continuous fault line in which we see multiple different types of mineralisation occurring, both antimony, tungsten and gold. And this is what I said before, they're in this area because of, I guess, the Idaho batholith and its source. These mineralisation types they go hand in hand. So, I mean, our early stage sampling of rock chips and so forth, we've already come back with gold, silver, 0.1% antimony. So now I don't expect that this entire zone is mineralized, of course. That's not how it sort of works.
But you need to tell them that.
Yeah, well, no, but so that's not how it works. What you do find is that within that zone, right, of that silicious zone and along that fault, you'll find multiple different lenses and pods of mineralization, and sometimes it will vary at different depths as to what that mineralization is. So when I look at the Silver Cliffs prospect, I look at this and I say, this is a gold play, this is an antimony play, and like I said before, you can't separate tungsten from that as well. So yeah, the chances of finding, you know, at Springfield we have the tungsten already, like we know we've got tungsten there, we have to find more of it. At Silver Cliffs, we have the potential there for, I'm looking at it more as a gold-silver antimony play at Silver Cliffs, but this just gives you an idea of the different systems, right? Different mineral systems, and you know, different potential for mineralization as well. So it's really quite exciting when you look at those two. The mineralization is different, but can be, you know, the same commodity.
So they're about, that tenement Silver Cliff is, say, 2 by 2, 2.5 by 2.5.
We've got we have just expanded it, so we've got 80 claims there now, which is, we've got about 5 square kilometres there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how's that, so that people can visualise it? What size are we going, like how many kilometres across? How many square kilometres are we talking about?
Oh, like 5 square kilometres is what we're looking at there. Yeah, that's the easiest way to think about it. In the US, they do it by claims. Each individual claim block is about 20 acres, right? So 80 claims, 80 times 20, you know, and then convert it across. So you are dealing with, you know, smaller parcels compared to traditionally in Australia, significantly smaller. But like I said, it's a different process where instead of working from a really broad area and just trying to claim everything and then zoning down, you know, you have to really do your research and then have targeted specific areas for specific reasons. And that's what we've got there. There is another prospect, Northman, which is just closest to Resolution Minerals and also to the Stibnite Gold project. And, you know, this is, in many ways, it's the least exciting, but to me, it's also almost the most exciting because it's a pretty mountainous area of terrain. It sits just off the east of that major Johnson Creek shear zone, which controls a lot of the mineralisation which we associate with Silver Cliffs and potentially Resolution Minerals Golden Gate targets as well. And here we can see the Idaho batholith in direct contact with the Windermere supergroup, right? So it's got the source, it's got the chemical trap and so forth. But it is absolutely greenfields, right? No exploration at all. Absolutely no exploration at all. And when you sort of assess these different situations, you say, well, here's this parcel of land, you know, really proximal to these significant deposits with almost identical geology, and absolutely no exploration done because of its sort of, I guess, remoteness, right? And so it's the double-edged sword, right? A little bit more difficult to explore, but also never explored. So the most likely chance of you finding the next huge deposit, is it over ground that's been picked over already? Or is it the great ground which ticks all the boxes but no one's ever really looked at before? So that's why Northman, I look at Northman and I think, all right, it will take me a bit longer to work those targets up there. But you get a good target there, and I think the potential there is absolutely huge. So, the project overall just offers, I guess, tungsten, antimony, gold, right? Could be a huge gold discovery, could be a huge tungsten discovery, hopefully both. But it offers it in different settings with different geological controls as well. One being fault bound, right, and the other one being classic yellow pine, mineralisation host in roof pendants with that gold halo.
I mean, you're talking to the converted exploration geologists.
Yeah.
We're always optimistic and we're always excited about this. And I think the gold story, I think it's really interesting when I look at your diagrams of your tenement size and you're talking about it, because I think a lot of people are used to seeing big acreage and big exposure, but at the end of the day, if you look at your average mine size, you're talking about 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, and that's your mine.
Yeah.
That's where you're producing 1 million ounces. I mean, if you look at the super pit, for example, we're not talking about 20 kilometers by 20 kilometers. So and that's producing what, about 1 million ounces a year they're mining and things like that. So it's really that concept. With that thought and everything else, obviously, it's the first thing that comes to my mind, and because you and I have been in this industry for decades. How do we fund it, right? So how is the engine room or Pioneer working this out? And if you can share with us how that is, how is that complementing your thoughts on the prospectivity of the projects?
Well, one of the reasons that we went out to get this ground is because of our shareholder base. So our shareholder base, we have a very tight shareholder base, small, very tightly held, and they saw the future of exploration in US critical minerals, right? With the geopolitics as they are at the moment, increase in defense expenditure in the US, China, the EU, everywhere globally, and the way things are going. And then obviously with Trump as well, and a refocus on US industrialization and also defense, they see that the best place to be in the world for mining and for exploration is in the US, and I agree. So that's how the project came about, because our shareholders said, we want to be, Pioneer Lithium Explorer. We want Pioneer Minerals to be US critical minerals exploration company and miner. Michael, go get us the ground. We want tungsten, we want antimony, right? So that's what I've done. So our shareholder base is 100% behind the company as well. And I think as well, when you look at, I guess, funding it moving further as well, being able to tap in with US and Australian defense, I think is critical as well. And there's just a lot of focus at the moment on US defense, and they're the two main areas that both antimony and tungsten are really needed at the moment. So I think the pathway forward as far as funding is going to be excellent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, I guess a lot of people don't see the back room. I call it the engine room, because obviously that would determine whether you're going to drill 2,000 meters or you're going to drill 5,000 meters. Yeah. So that's very important in that sense. So how is, you got the engine room that says, yes, let's do it. How is the capital markets responding to that? Are they saying, yep?
Well, so far, I think we've flown under the radar on these projects. They're relatively new. And I do have to say, when we put out those absolutely fantastic results with the tungsten grades and the shearlite and so forth, it was on the day when the ASX had their outage in relation to price sensitive announcements. So, but I think when you look at, there's a great saying that my chairman has, where he says, Michael, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And I very much agree with that sentiment. Yeah. So because of we've got all the fundamentals there, we've got great projects, great geology, I think as well, genuine chance to make real significant discovery there as well. Everything will come with time as we progress it. Yeah, I don't particularly have any concerns about, whether we get a short-term immediate response with the share price. I just think if you look at Resolution Minerals, one of our neighbours, you look at their market cap, you look at Perpetua Resources and their market cap. When it comes to players in the area, we're the next player, right? Those projects are more advanced than us, but we're going to catch up quick. So, we're quite aggressive. This is our flagship project as well. This is where we're focused. And so, all good things with time. Yeah.
Okay. The market as it is, it's red hot as we talk about with the antimony play and then the US critical story and everything else. And one of the things that come to my mind, and a lot of, I guess I kind of preach a bit of this, is that there is the stories that are what I call mining the market news, and there's the ones that are real deal. And the mining market, and I always want to stress is that you make money from it. A lot of people make good money from it. But for me, for my investment style, and many of the guys that I speak to, it's really based on which part of the curve you get in, and you can ride it or not.
Yeah.
Whereas the real deal one tends to be a little bit more simpler. You believe in it, you think it's a real deal, you sit and wait.
Yeah.
So how do you convince the guys out there that you guys are the real deal? I hear you saying everything. I like it. I think it's great. Yeah. And then,
Yeah. To be honest with you, only time is going to tell, right? Because, but we have just gone and spent, close to $600,000 on acquiring these projects and the actual exploration so far, right? We are aggressively exploring this area. And again, too, our shareholder group thinks that antimony, tungsten, US critical minerals are the future, right? Not just let me put it this way. If we were just chasing the immediate market re-rate, right, we probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about tungsten as a primary focus. We'd be talking about antimony, right? Because it's a hot topic, hot word. Now, yep, we have excellent ground for antimony, and it's highly likely there'll be antimony associated with what we find. But when we're talking about longevity and becoming a real player, and personally as well, tungsten is the commodity to focus on, I believe. It's just lagging behind in market awareness. I don't think a lot of people understand the rarity of tungsten and how tungsten deposits occur as well. The size of them, and also the nature of mineralisation as well. So antimony, excellent, but often when you look at most antimony plays, extremely thin veins, right? And so you get reports of high grades and whatever they're taken from selective areas that, antimony mines which are in production generally have, multiple different quartz veining through a schist with at least 5 or 6 metre intercepts, around 4 to 9% sort of antimony, and that's what makes a deposit sort of work. Individual high grades and that don't cut it. It's hot in the market at the moment, but I think for longevity, it doesn't really, play out. Tungsten, and this is what I said about how tungsten occurs. If you look at the size of tungsten deposits globally, like my whole life I've been looking for tungsten, right? Doesn't matter if I'm drilling for gold, doesn't matter if I'm drilling anywhere in the world. One of the first elements I always check is tungsten, right? You look at your list of elements from your assays, and then you go, do I have any tungsten? Because you never have any tungsten, right? Because it's rare. It's not like a lot of other, you're drilling, a different commodity, a copper commodity or a gold target, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I've got some tungsten mixed in here as well. Very, very, very rare. And then when you look at the size of actual tungsten deposits that are mined, a small deposit might be 5 to 10 million tonnes maybe. A tier 2 deposit, tungsten deposit, is 10 to 20 million tonnes, right? It wouldn't even, if that was copper, it wouldn't even though it's worth 8 times as much as copper, if it's copper, it wouldn't even make and a tier 1 globally significant tungsten deposit is 63 million tonnes. Tiny compared to the way that most other commodities occur. And so it just sort of reinforces, I think, the rarity of it. And even if it's not hot on the market as far as a hot button for people to buy right now, as you said with the tungsten price, it's going through the roof, right? I think there's long-term sustainability there as well, and it is genuinely rare. It's genuinely rare. You know, we talk about rare earths, right? Obviously, economic deposits of them are rare, but they're not rare themselves. Tungsten's not like that. I can't drill a hole anywhere and go, I can drill a hole anywhere and go, I've got rare earths. It's just whether they're economic or not. I can't do that with tungsten. I drill a hole anywhere and I say, there's no tungsten here at all, right? So,
that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. So when you look at the longevity of a commodity into play, you know, and you know, a lot of people as well will talk about what happens when Trump's not in office anymore, right? Well, I think geopolitically, in the way things have shifted, the all of a sudden backflip for the US to depend on its supply from China. I mean, China provides 83% of the world's tungsten at the moment, as far as mining, 17% of the rest of the world. And they banned exports to the US. And even if they do reopen exports to the US, I don't think that all of a sudden America's going to say, okay, no problems, let's be at the beck and call of Chinese supply again. You know, I think geopolitically, we will never revert back to that. So I think we've got excellent longevity there as well. And so developing that tungsten is, I think, is key. Yeah.
What I mentioned this very, very early in our discussion today. Why do you think there's a disequilibrium in tungsten price and the market sentiment, whereas antimony and everything else, like the golds, and they're pretty, you could say they're almost at par of each other. But tungsten is very, very...
Yeah, I think it's just because people don't understand tungsten and the tungsten market yet. You know, there are a lot of analogies that you can... So one thing, I don't think they understand it. There's a lot of different aspects to it, I personally believe. And it depends on what level of investor you're talking to, of course. But if we look at tungsten and we start talking about 0.1, 0.3%, right? And you're used to being a copper or antimony or anything like that, you know, that just seems low grade, right? And if you don't understand the value, the MTU conversion to tonnage and so forth, you know, it makes it very hard to get your head around, you know, because you very rarely have these huge numbers like antimony, 48% antimony, like, wow, that's amazing. So I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the grade. There's also people don't understand the rarity that I alluded to just before, about how truly rare and small, generally, tungsten deposits are compared to others. And then I think as well, there just aren't many tungsten explorers, right? If you look at ASX listed tungsten explorers, you look at American tungsten explorers, you look at, you know, you can name a handful, right? We've got some great Tasmanian companies doing great work, but you know, there's no tungsten miner in the US at the moment, right? There's a couple of mines on care and maintenance that could potentially be restarted, but there are just very few tungsten plays and people in this space. So there's very little publicity, very little awareness of tungsten. And I think that's something that will change over time. You know, I think the work that you're doing, just talking about tungsten and actually bringing awareness to what this metal is, right? What it's used for, the second hardest metal in the world, second highest melting point in the world, and then used for all of your industrial manufacturing and also your tungsten carbides, everyone knows that. But then also your defense as well. You know, it's critical for defense, for armor and for munitions, especially armor-piercing munitions. So I think it's just, I think it's time. We see the price skyrocketing. And I guess the awareness of it, not many people out there talking about it, so it would take a bit longer for it to catch up. And that's why it's a great opportunity now, I think, to get into the tungsten space, because, and I'm just personal investment, what I personally do, you know, and I've always done, I guess I'm a lot like you, I don't play the short-term markets, up and down, whatever's hot. I've always personally invested in companies which have a good project that look like it could be economic, and you know, they've got that long run, and the commodity price is suppressed. Right now, the tungsten price is going absolutely berkers, bonza, I should say, but it doesn't. The awareness isn't there yet. Once people switch on, to I guess the true rarity of tungsten, it's going to be an exciting time. So this is the time to buy tungsten plays, I think personally. A good time to get on board, because I don't think we've even start to see ASX listed companies get re-rated based off tungsten yet.
Because I remember in, I don't know, I forget now, man, 2012, 2011, when tungsten price was 425 MTU, and that was like all-time high.
Yeah.
Then it fell off the cliff effectively to 300, maybe that we saw 2 or something.
High twos.
And then that stayed like that for years, and then so maybe 23 or 22 I started hearing people wanting to do tungsten again, and I referred straight away to the price, and it was low threes, and knowing the difficulties of all the things that you described about a tungsten play. Next thing I hear, it's 450, 500, and that space is maybe 12 months or so, and within 9 months, it's gone from that 400s to, I think I checked last night, it was like 850 or 750.
It's very high. Yeah,
it's like it's gone berserk.
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
it's stratospheric levels.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, the sentiment is like not much.
Yeah. Well, another thing as well about tungsten is you can draw a direct analogy here in relation to the supply chain and rare earths, right? As far as how critical the mineral is, because it's not just a situation that China controls 83% of the production of tungsten, right? But they also, and have banned exports, but they're also the world's largest importer of tungsten.
Correct.
Right? So you go, hang on, like the demand is so high here that not only are they the biggest miner, but they're now importing all the tungsten they can get their hands on, but also they control the production and the processing. So, you when you're mining, you'll produce generally a tungsten concentrate, right? You'll crush it, then you use flotation to remove the impurities and so forth, and then you'll sell a tungsten concentrate. That will get changed into APT, and APT will get sold to an actual a manufacturer that can then use it for whatever they want, right? But China controls that as well, right? So they've got the production, they're the biggest importer, and then at the same time though, everything that we want to use tungsten for heavy industry, for defense, the expenditure as GDP is just going through the roof everywhere, right? And we need tungsten. It's the same as rare earths. It's like we need these are critical to everything that we do, but not only do we not have the tungsten supply we need, but we also don't have the processing capability of it. And that's another thing I think about tungsten that people haven't caught on to yet, right? Because people don't understand that supply chain and the process and how it works globally. It's as critical as rare earths, if not more.
And right? That's a good analogy, because the Western world against the Chinese, whatever you like, how you want to narrate that piece of information, is that rare earths, the issue now is the Western side doesn't have a real processing ability, right? But they're building it, and they're creating it, and we all hear about the difficulties and the hurdles and everything else.
Yeah.
And tungsten is also now there, and it hasn't started yet. It hasn't gone down that process. There's no real way to process, like get an APT out to people. Throw on top of that, rare earths is not very rare. You get them everywhere.
Yeah.
Throw on top of tungsten that tungsten actually is rare.
Yeah, super rare. Yeah.
Super rare.
Yeah.
So even if you got all these up, you may not have the stock feed.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of people forget it. Forget that is the problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but going forward, I mean, obviously we know gold's hot and everything else, and you can, and all the mediocre projects are now becoming profitable, and the not so mediocre on the lower level are now becoming mediocre and being considered.
Yeah.
You are out there raising money, and we touched on this project before, this topic before, but do you still see that difficulty if you're not, I mean, a few years ago, if your project wasn't a lithium project, you couldn't raise money.
Yeah.
Is that the same now? But it's now, if you're not a gold project, you're not considered?
Well, we don't particularly have any concerns about raising money. We've got a really good group of backers, right? So we're fine in that space to continue to, I guess, fund the exploration. When it comes to raising money, I guess, and bringing on external partners, looking for a partner which is really invested in US critical minerals, is the sort of person that we want to partner up with, sort of to move forward. But gold, I am very bullish on the gold system that we potentially have here at Springfield and also Silver Cliffs. I think it's an excellent opportunity. And there's always money for gold, with the mining cycle, up, down, up, down, up, down. And this is what I always say to people is that if you have a gold project, when it's the downturn in the mining industry, you're still fine, right? If it's a good, genuine project, you can still raise, there's always money for gold. So, no concerns there. I think we've got a really good gold play here as well. And then, the tungsten on top, I just think that the second it clicks for people about the true rarity, people will be throwing money at us. I hate to say it, but I don't really have concerns that much at the moment about raising money, just because we've got strong backers. I know that the true critical nature of what we're exploring for in the US as well. There's lots of different avenues there with Department of Defense, now Department of War, and so forth. And also as well, Australia and the US have a handshake agreement, in relation to, I guess, us helping them to develop their critical mineral space. So I think we're in an excellent place moving forward in relation to pretty much everything. And really quite confident about how things are going to play out.
Okay. Apologise for all the noise. Hopefully the mics will work well. But
it's the coffee with Samso in the coffee shop, right? You've got to have a little bit of coffee machine noise.
To summarise all our discussions, right? What are the key parameters? Firstly, on two tiers. One is for investors to look at from a global sector, and what are the key parameters they should, that you could share with us, in just so that they know, okay, these things are hitting. I'm in. The next thing is the same kind of, what are the key parameters on the smaller scale, Pioneer? What should they be looking out for, if you can break that up into a couple of questions?
Well, on a macro scale, I would just circle back to say that tungsten price is astronomical. Tungsten is extremely rare, right? But the market sentiment behind it hasn't caught up yet, right? So this is your opportunity to get in early, right? And obviously make those big profits, make that money, right? You get in early before it goes hot and absolutely flies, which I'm very confident it's going to. This is when I would be buying in, right? In the same way that some people, I've bought into rare earths when they're low, because I know it's only a matter of time. Bought into lithium as a suppressed price. We see it coming back now, and everything is going green, absolutely fantastic. I think tungsten is a bit of a different story, because the price is super high, but the sentiment is people just aren't aware at the moment. So I would get on it before you miss your opportunity. That would be my advice there. I guess as well, the other thing that I would say is that some people followed me for quite some time with GeoInvest. Didn't always get everything right, obviously, but I've looked at a lot of different projects around the world as to what's good, what's bad, what's real, right? What's real, that's the main thing. What's spin and what's real. And when I'm given the task to go get tungsten, antimony, and gold, this is genuinely, and I know the CEO, I have to talk, spin things up or paint them in the best light, but I'll be honest with you, this is the best ground I've ever pegged in my life, right? At Petrotherm, I pegged a bunch of ground, which is now their huge mineral sands deposit, things like this. But when I'm looking at the opportunity, I'm looking at what the ground offers, this is the best ground I've ever pegged in my life, and just the most exciting opportunity as well. So that's all I can really say. We've got great projects, excellent fundamentals, early stages are coming back really exciting. If you look at how tungsten skarns occur, right? Stacked lenses, multiple different roof pendants, that's their nature. And you look at Springfield, no drilling, it's just sticking out the ground, one lens, I strongly expect that there is going to be much more there. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of exciting things to come, and a good early stage for you to get on board as well. And the other thing, I mean, depends on where are you playing the field as an investor, right? If you're a long-term investor, like, get on board and come with us this whole way for the critical minerals adventure, because we're going to find something, well, we're going to try to find something big and exciting, and that's our focus, and come and be a partner with us. If you're a small investor, we have one of the tightest held shareholder registry you could name. 63 million shares on offer. Over 50% of those are held by the top 5 people, right? They've all been on board since Pioneer Lithium, right? They're not sellers. If you look at our structure, if you're in that space, you'll see that we are an exciting opportunity that hasn't been realised yet. Yeah.
Well, that covers my last question, which was, to get you to sell your soul for Pioneer. You've done that without me telling you.
Well, it's relatively easy to do, and this is, I just want to hammer home on this as well. North Pine is my project, right? This is not a project that we've bought from someone else that makes sense or would be hot in the market or anything like that. This is specifically, Michael, go find what you want, right? Go find what you think is going to deliver and get it. And that's what I've done. So, we are in the exploration space, right? So we know how this game plays out sometimes, not everything's a winner. But when you get the opportunity to go get exactly what you want to get and why, it's easy to get behind and sell your soul to, right? I don't have to sit here and go, oh yeah, this is really great because X, Y, Z. Like, I got this because it's super exciting. Yeah, I think great opportunity personally. Yeah.
Look, Michael, fantastic. I do like the fact that it's geologically sound, and as you pointed out, you're going to try and make this into something bigger.
Yeah.
You're giving yourself the right foundations. But look, fantastic. I'm glad I reached out to you guys. We'll definitely be following you guys as you progress.
Yep.
And hopefully next time, whether you're in Perth or I'm in Adelaide, we should catch up again and get an update from you.
Yeah, and next time maybe we'll do a whiskey with Samso.
Yeah, and, always good.
Yeah.
Always good. We can have the whiskey mood as well.
Yeah. No.
Right, Michael, thank you for your time.
No, thanks for having me.
And I hope everything goes well, and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you.